Welcome to the Movement Cafe for June. We are in the midst of a busy season for United Methodists, and I am all the more grateful that you are here today. It's oh my goodness, we have a wonderful cafe planned. If you read any of the promo, you know that we've got some great conversation here around data centers and AI and energy within the United Methodist Church. We'll be talking about some of the things that we have to really attend to as Methodists, including issues of environmental justice, and how we are neighbors with each other and how we advocate for neighbors, as well as doing our own work, the energy changes that the discipline from 2024 calls our churches to, and navigating that. That's like a new thing, and it can be a challenge to navigate anything new. And here we are doing that work. So that's great to all of you. Thank you for being here and sharing the work with us. So I am Reverend Rashenda Fairhurst, and I am in Southern Oregon, beautiful Southern Oregon, with the green and gold hills and the blue sky, which I must admit, we live right where the pine trees and the oak trees sort of have a sort of dance and marriage together. And I just love that about our natural world where I am. Please introduce yourself in the chat. I know that y'all are hard at work doing this, and share about your effort. Are you a United Method, a Global Ministries Earthkeeper? Shout out if you are. Do you serve on a creation care team? Another big shout out. Are you one of the creation care coordinators for every conference? All of those things happened in the last 2 years. And how amazing is all of that? Well, the Earth Keepers have been here since 2016, and we might even have some first class, from the very first class of Earth Keepers here. And I know that includes Kathy, who will share about the movement in just a minute. So the Movement Cafe is part of the United Methodist Creation Justice Movement. We are here every third Wednesday of the month. And to tell you a little bit about the Creation Justice Movement, I'm going to turn it over to Kathy Velasquez Eberhardt, who is at her annual conference right now. So go ahead, Kathy.
Hey everyone, greetings. I am sitting here in St. Cloud on the River Center, which is on the Mississippi River. So I wanted you to see a little bit of what my view is here. We are gathered, as many United Methodists are during this season, in our Minnesota annual conference. I'm stepping away for a moment during our lunch break to join you all, because this is in many ways exactly how this movement has been growing, how United Methodists are finding each other at Earth Keepers trainings, at United Women in Faith gatherings, at conferences, and in our annual conferences. And that this body of our annual conference is one of the ways that we're taking action through resolutions, which we'll hear about, and through the ways that we're bringing in speakers to learn about what's going on in our communities and find ways to act very locally. It's a really exciting way that our denominational connectional system, that this movement is trying to explore how we can do creation justice together. What more can we do together given those relationships? Here in Minnesota, I'm pleased to report that our theme is serving joyfully. And one of the things our conference planning team wanted to do was make sure we weren't just talking about serving, but actually doing some of that work. And so we yesterday hosted a postcard campaign, so that instead of having a resolution, which is also a really wonderful way to act, we encouraged all of the participants to fill out postcards to send to their legislators, state legislators, about data centers in particular. So I'm really glad to hear that we'll be talking about that here, as well as all of the other variety of energy transition issues that are coming up. It's such a rich topic that we just were able to touch on briefly in our last newsletter. So I'm going to go off camera a bit just because my arm is getting tired holding my hand, but I did want you all to know I'm here, and greetings from annual conference and blessings on your own, whether you've had one already or are about to have one. Grateful to doing this work with you across the connection. Thank you all.
Thank you, Kathy. There has been some great news coming out of annual conferences. I'm not going to spoil that by shouting out too many people just yet, but we're going to start with getting our homework, getting our grounding. What is a data center? I know y'all know what it is, but we have Rania Masri here, and she is so she this is the heart of her work. She's gonna bring that real help to us to kind of get some common language and some common understanding of what a data center is. We're also going to be addressing AI and legislation a little bit later. We're going to start though here, and I'm going to offer a bit of an introduction. Just their full introduction will be in a link I'm going to drop in just a minute. Dr. Rania Masri, since 1990, she has organized for justice and against systems of oppression and wars through protests, teach-ins, and conferences, political organizing, public speaking training, and writings, research, and media work. She taught holistic environmental sciences through and including environmental justice at the university level for nearly 2 decades. She serves as an expert in the Court of Conscience, where she presented testimony on the environmental impact of the 2006 Israeli war on Lebanon, and as a juror in the 2025 Merchants of Death War Crimes Tribunal. Wow. Okay, so that's a lot, and you can see the depth she has and the lens that she brings to data center work that also impacts people where they live and where they make their homes. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Rania.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation. And I'm truly honored to be with you all and to be talking to such a wide group of people from so many parts of the country. And as well as I see there's also a reverend here from Sierra Leone. So thank you. And let's start very simply. What is a data center? What is an AI data center? And I get this question a lot because people think that, hold on, you're asking me to not use the internet, to not think about things the way that we do. So let's start with the basics here. What is an AI data center? And how is it different from a traditional data center? So the data centers that we've had in this country since the 1950s are very small, simple warehouses that run large computer system. That's what a data center is. And typically the traditional data centers power everyday services like email, online banking, Gmail, stuff like that. AI data centers use large language modeling. It doesn't make sense to call them large language modeling centers, which is what I would prefer to call them. But these large language models, the big difference between them and regular data centers is that these generate content. They don't simply store information and process emails. They generate content. They use facial recognition. They train in so-called intelligence, but of course we know a machine cannot be intelligent. There's no way. Intelligence is based on relationships and it's a non you can't be an intelligent machine. And I can go into the eugenics of that. But just to ground it, we are talking here about AI data centers. Before I go any further, though, I think it's critical for us to talk about what do we value? What's our framework for assessing if we support an industry or if we support something or if we don't support it? I'm sure each of us has certain red lines and certain assessments. For me, I look at who does it benefit and how does it harm? Not simply who does it harm, but how does it harm? And is it producing something that we need to survive, not producing something that we want, mind you. I miss the days when we didn't have cell phones. I thought our life was a lot better before cell phones. Before even those technological aspects. I remember back when we had a black and white television set. So I just think if for each one of us to center in what we value, and particularly for those of us who center spirituality in our lives, what is it that we value and what are our red lines? And I haven't read through it all, but I'm trying to figure out I'm changing all my there we go. Haven't read through it all, but I think it's incumbent upon me to start with Pope Leo's statement. And he did issue something quite significant. And here's how he looks at it. Solidarity demands that decisions regarding data algorithms, platforms, and artificial intelligence take into account not only the immediate benefit for few, but also the impact on all peoples and on future generations. So, what is the impact of this technology on all peoples and on future generations? He goes on and he writes, in one sense, technological innovation can represent human participation in the divine act of creation. And I got chills reading that. The divine act of creation. Developers, therefore, bear a particular ethical and spiritual responsibility for every design choice reflects a vision of humanity. Okay, so what is our vision of humanity? And what do we want to be pushing forward? For me personally, my vision of humanity is one grounded in relationships. It's one grounded in communication. And it's one grounded in making sure that no one rises above anybody else, but that we rise up together within a framework of humility. But that becomes my vision of humanity. What are the developers' vision of humanity here within this technology? The Pope Leo's Magnificat Humanitas also goes on and it says, AI generates new forms of slavery, such as those of the scarred, injured, and worn down bodies of those who work in the extraction of the rare earth elements needed for technology. This was the language he used. New forms of slavery. He went on and he upholded the importance of combating new forms of slavery as another decisive test for ethical discernment in the digital transformation. So there's a lot to pause there. And I found his statements also to ground social justice. He calls for an ethical code subject to shared standards of social justice because a more moral AI is not enough if that morality is determined by a few, nor should the environmental impact of new technologies be overlooked since they require large quantities of energy and water affecting creation. So here, he's touching on issues of democracy and shared accountability and shared transparency. And of course, well, how does this industry impact consumption of energy and water? And I found his statements to be very, very similar to numerous other statements that have been made about this industry, such as beautiful statements by Kate Crawford, who's written an excellent book called Atlas of AI. And she writes that AI is a technology of extraction from the minerals drawn from the earth to the labor pulled from low-wage information workers, such as those in Kenya, for example, to the data taken from every action and expression, that we are building an extractive industry. And this system depends on exploiting energy and mineral resources from the planet, cheap labor, and data at scale. These are really heavy, heavy words that are being said. What kind of energy is being used? Since I understand that the focus here is let's look at energy. And here's where it really hurts. Energy used by AI data centers globally. This is according to a new report issued by the United Nations University. And they state that in 2025, this year, global data centers were estimated to consume 448 terawatt hours. And I was like, what is a terawatt hour? It's 1 trillion watts. So 448 trillion watts. That equals the consumption of the 11th country. So we look at electricity consumption by countries. Already this year, data centers have consumed as much as the 11th country in terms of electricity consumption. And in the next 5 years, it's estimated to rise up to 945 terawatts. That is huge. That is already this year, we're using the electricity consumption of the entire population of sub-Saharan Africa. That's 1.3 billion people. And in the next 5 years, it is expected to double globally. The energy consumption is expected to double. Mind you, we are living in a climate emergency. We are in the midst of the climate emergency here. This is globally. And then if we look at the United States, well, last year, 4% of the total electricity usage in the United States was from data centers. And in the next 5 years, it's expected to triple. The amount of energy usage in the United States from data centers are expected to triple in the next 5 years. This is, again, really large. And by that tripling, that means coal plants will not be retired, they're being brought back. That means an increase of gas pipelines, an increase of fracking, increase of so-called, natural gas, which is a terrible term. And there's a resurgence now of looking at nuclear power. Nuclear power, which in a state like North Carolina is considered clean energy, but I'm sure if your land is one of those lands that is mined for uranium, and you also have your community or one of those communities upon which radioactive waste is deposited, I'm sure you would not regard nuclear energy as clean. But we are talking about the tripling of energy demands in the United States by 5 years. This is really, really quite severe. Who pays for it? Who literally is paying for it? And other than our financial cost, in what other ways are we paying for it? What are the myriad of ways that we are paying for this? So let's break this down. This is a typical average size data center that's coming to North Carolina. Average size, 250 megawatts. Which when I was talking to folks in Canada, the largest Canadian data center is 300 megawatts. In North Carolina, this is the average size, and we're fighting this. 250 megawatts is equal to the energy consumption of an entire city, a city of 250,000 people, and it equals the output of a nuclear power plant. That is quite significant right there. In terms of the health costs, because of how it is generated, it will cause significant human health concerns. So we're typically having these data centers are generated using diesel fuel and they operate 24/7. So we are talking about just from air quality, an increase of lung irritation, massive increase in asthma, just asthma globally. I mean, not globally, nationally in the United States, just asthma. And just from the diesel fuel production of data centers, we are expecting to cause 1,300 premature deaths annually in the United States. So is this industry worth the lives of 1,300 people annually in the United States? I think that should be how we frame it. And if one of those 1,300 people were our loved one, is the industry worth their life? In addition to that, we're talking about chronic pulmonary disease and premature death. So it's quite severe in terms of energy hunger. Okay. But then we get this aspect of, well, and this is being promoted. Why don't we just power them all with renewable energy, right? Why, if it's so problematic to power it with fossil fuel and to power it with nuclear and coal, let's just power it by the sun. Well, there's a problem to that. One, solar energy still uses minerals and it predominantly uses lithium that is mined. So if I am going to cause land destruction through the mining of a limited resource like lithium, I want to make sure I'm prioritizing that. So I want to give that renewable energy source, a solar energy that's still based on a non-renewable energy called lithium. I want to make sure that I'm using that for our primary needs. Data center is not our primary need. Powering our homes and hospitals, those are a primary need. So we need renewable energy everywhere. Given that data centers are the cause for tripling electricity consumption in the United States in the next 5 years, they should not get the priority in renewable energy. Our homes and hospitals and schools should get the priority in renewable energy. Second, let's say that it's even possible to power everything with renewable. And let's say we do have enough lithium. I'm just going to make the argument. Let's say we can do it all wonderfully. Do we have enough water? Do we have enough water to power these data centers? So we're very familiar with energy consumption being the main thing that goes into a data center. But data centers, particularly here, I'm looking at AI data centers, are extremely water consumptive. So AI operations already consume between 300 billion and 760 billion liters of water per year. It is significant. This is the global consumption. And we are facing a global water bankruptcy. Global water bankruptcy. Do we have the water to sustain a data center? A single data center can consume as much water as a city of 50,000 people. Do we have the land loss? Do we have so much land that we're willing to waste and give away rather than to use these lands in terms of regenerative agriculture and affordable housing? In the United States, there are two main gobblers of our land: data centers and ICE detention facilities. These are the ones going into our rural communities and gobbling up hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of acres. Do we have land that we're willing to give up? What about public monies? In the United States, 36 states in the United States offer tax incentives, sales and usage tax incentives for data centers. This amounts to, in 3 states at least, almost $1 billion a year in tax incentives coming from the bucket of money that goes into our public school system. We are paying them. I'm a firm socialist. I believe in lifting everybody up. But in the United States, we only apply socialism for the wealthy, and the poor get capitalism. And this is exactly the kind of socialism that the data centers are getting. And then we have to consider all the critical resources that go into the construction of data centers. Like I said, they use a lot of lithium, they use a lot of memory chips, they use a lot of other material that then takes that material away from other things that we need or that we're using: computers, calculators, refrigerators, so on and so forth. And what do they end up giving us in return to this? They give us a lot of air and water pollution. I already spoke about air pollution from data centers causing an additional 600,000 asthma cases annually. And that we're only looking at asthma cases from diesel generators, not from the whole bunch of them. Water pollution is also significant because these data generators, these data centers, use PFAS to cool their computers. And so we're talking about increased water pollution, and we're talking about increased PFAS contamination. We're also talking about quite severe noise pollution. Noise and infrasound pollution is quite large, as well as light pollution. Heat island effect. In certain areas, the temperature around these data centers can increase by up to 16 degrees Fahrenheit, as if we need more warmer temperatures. They also cause runoff and flooding. We're seeing that happening in Virginia right now, and they cause increased housing cost all around. These are what they directly give to the community. And we do all this for what? So that we can get this technology called artificial intelligence. Again, there's nothing artificial about it because it's built on minerals from the earth, and there's nothing intelligent about it because it basically just takes the data that's out there. But according to the founders of OpenAI, the reason they are creating this is to transform our economy so they can replace our labor, not support our labor. The idea is that they want to displace workers. McKinsey report predicts between 2016 and 2030. So basically, it's already happened. And in the next 5 years, we're going to see AI take over 15% of the global workforce. That means we're talking about 400 million workers who will lose their jobs. Already 40% of employers in the United States expect to reduce their workforce because of AI. Blue collar, white collar jobs are being transitioned out. In addition, AI is being used to pay people differently. So Uber and Lyft drivers, the more hours that they work, the less they get paid. We also have nurses and workers in customer service and logistics that their wages are determined by their credit. The more money you owe, the less you get paid. The more money you owe, the less you get paid, because according to the capitalistic system, the more you need something, the less they're going to the less money they're going to give you, because the less you're going to be able to fight to ask for more wages. So we're seeing pricing and wage algorithms being used by AI. We also have already in the United States 92 million low-income people in the United States have major decisions made for them by AI. Governmental officials, business leaders, and other people in positions already in the US use AI to cut Medicaid and other public benefits, to deny people housing, employment, or credit, to take kids away from their parents, to intensify domestic violence and sexual abuse or harassment, and this is what scares me the most, to label and mistreat middle and high school kids as dropouts or criminals and falsely accuse Black and brown people of crimes. This is already happening by the way that governmental agencies are using AI. We also are seeing an increase of fake porn, and that will likely go on further, an increase of scams, and so much false information that my mom regularly asks me, is this video real? Is this real? What will this do to our democracy when we no longer really trust what we see? And we're not even talking about the heart of AI, because it is predominantly being used by ICE right now. ICE uses AI services like Palantir to surveil Americans and other individuals living in the United States and to assist in the kidnapping of our neighbors. And I use the word kidnap because when ICE detains without due process, it is not a detention, it is a kidnapping. And when one individual on US soil is kidnapped, then no one in this country is safe, regardless of our, legal status, regardless of our immigration. So it is being used to increase surveillance, and it's being incorporated into more and more governmental agencies, including the USDA, not just DHS. And let us not forget that the ongoing genocide against Palestinians in Gaza was the first use of AI in warfare, where the Israelis used 4 different AI tools. And the ongoing US and Israeli war against Iran has also used AI in warfare. They use it to increase the killing efficiency. This is what they're so proud of. And it doesn't stop there, because Tristan Harris, a leading AI ethicist, says that we could be opening up possibilities for AI to hack our electricity grids and for AI to blackmail us and for AI to code AI. So we are talking about a deeply extractive industry with huge potential for harm, not something that we should be taking lightly. Okay. Very briefly, I just want to let you know that there are ways that we can be fighting this. So I know I've already gone over my 20 minutes of allocated time. I do want to stress that we can stop this. We have to stop this. The majority of Americans oppose data centers. The numbers are at least 70%. Some polls have it as high as 85%. We are calling for national moratoriums, local moratoriums, for them to be at least 32 months. So during that time period, we can pass enforceable regulations to protect communities. We have a timeline as to why 32 months that I can share with you, as well as policy tools that we can be pushing in our local community and in our state community, so that we can be pushing for conditional use permitting to push to protect our communities, and to be aware of these multiple greenwashing scams that unfortunately are being propagated not simply by the AI industry, but also by some big greens out there, just to be very wary of. To remember fundamentally that an AI system is built from our own systems, and our systems are deeply sexist, deeply classist, deeply racist. These systems are designed to discriminate, to increase hierarchies, and to narrow classification. So we can fight them together, and we have to believe in the possibility of fighting this monster. And I look forward to your questions so we can be examining this in further detail. And back to you all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. I just want to flag too that we are going to, unfortunately, Ian is not going to be able to join us today. So I didn't feel any need to step in and let Rania really share what she came to. And you could see that she moved through some of those slides rather quickly. I bet if you asked her to come to speak to your group, she would. And also, this is recorded, and there's a lot more information in the chat, links to her organization and the work she's doing, because there's so much more to know. And thank you so much. Oh my goodness, what an introduction, right? I almost feel like we just have to take a breath for a second. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce our next speaker. And this really goes into the what are we going to do about this question? And in Horizon, Texas, and other annual conferences, including North Carolina, Virginia. I think right now where Kathy is in Minnesota, they're talking data centers. And I'm going to let Mel Caraway, Reverend Mel Caraway, talk a little bit about what they're doing. They have, in fact, put a few things over the line for legislation this year, including getting a care team formally established. But Mel has been working at this intersection in Texas for years. Is a Global Methodist Global Ministries Earthkeeper and a member of the coordinating team for the United Methodist Creation Justice Movement. And so, Mel, I want to turn it over to you to share what happened at Horizon, Texas.
Okay, thank you, Rashinda. And Rania, thank you so very much. You covered so much material. And what I would say is that all of the problems that we're talking about, there's an intersectionality there. And as you said, quoting Pope Leo in Magnificat Humanitas, it's a justice issue. And all of these justice issues are interconnected with data centers. Healthcare justice, racial justice, economic justice, all of these intersect, and you can't separate them out. You can't just say it's one and it's not the others. It's all of the above. And so in Horizon, Texas, which our annual conference stretches from the Panhandle all the way down to just north of Austin, from Midland in the west, all the way almost to the Arkansas and Louisiana borders. We had a resolution or a petition at annual conference this year. And we covered a lot of the issues that Rania was talking about. But one of the things that in Texas and Virginia are the two states with the largest number of data centers, both now and proposed. And so we're dealing with large scale data centers. I'm going to take your water usage and I'm going to convert that into gallons per day. Data centers use between 300,000 and 5 million gallons of water per day. Think about that. We have a water shortage. We're in the midst of a water shortage in Texas. We're in a drought. Corpus Christi, which Jenny, I hope, is going to talk about a little bit later, they're looking at running out of water before the end of this year. And data centers are a prime user of water, and we have to help them. We have to create technologies that allow sustainable use of water. The other thing about sustainable use is that our grid in Texas, which is primarily limited to the state of Texas, does not have the capability of fueling all these data centers. So what we have to do is we have to come up with alternatives. We have to come up with compromises, and we do this in a number of ways. But I think from a creation justice standpoint, what we want and what the petition that we submitted and was approved almost unanimously at our annual conference was addressed. It addressed the justice issues, but it also addressed issues like the grid, water, tax abatements and incentives, which, as you so rightly said, are taking away from our public school funding. And so we have to do this. Another thing about the water, we have 250 counties in Texas, and of those 250 counties, 100 of those counties do not have a groundwater district which regulates the use of water. So these people can come in and they can use as much water as they want, and it's totally unregulated. What we're proposing that our legislators do, and we're proposing, we're asking our people to contact their senators, their representatives, the governor, the Utility Commission, the Railroad Commission, which governs oil and gas, but also local and county officials, because it's an all of the above strategy. We have to begin to place limitations across the board on the data center development. One of the things that we get a lot is, oh, we're creating all these jobs. Yeah, you're creating jobs for 2 years for construction, but once that construction is over, there's only going to be about 10 people working in that data center. And so you're not creating jobs. You're leeching off of the rest of the economy. One of our suburbs of Dallas is Red Oak, Texas. It's just south of the Dallas area. They have an 800 acre proposed data center, which their city council approved. But the community itself is largely opposed to it. And people put signs in their yards opposing this. And you know what happened? They cited those people who were opposed to it and fined them as a result of it. So, I mean, we're dealing with an organized movement that is trying to force data centers when, as you said, Rania, 70% of the population totally opposes them. I'll pretty much leave it at that and just say that we passed this petition at annual conference. No one spoke against it. No one. And so we have people every day are contacting me and saying, thank you for doing this. We didn't realize the depth of the problem, but now we do. And so I think education is so important moving forward as we educate people to what the problems associated with data centers are.
Thank you, Mel. And I just, did you hear that word? Nobody spoke against it. I think we're finding that people are kind of hungry to have a way to step up and say, wait, what? Time out. What is happening and why? And is this actually what we want? And along those lines, this, like I say, happening in these different conferences, it's happening in North Carolina as well. And Haley Reed is with us today, and I'm going to just offer a very quick bio. And again, the full bio will be in the, I'll repost that link in just a minute. But Haley Reed is the Communications and AV Coordinator at Epworth UMC in Durham, North Carolina since 2024. She has a Bachelor of Science in Political Science from Francis Mason Marion University, and that I'm sure is where she learned that she can do this work. Right? We can be in the arena and talk about this publicly. And she grew up in the rapidly changing technological landscape. Oh my goodness, isn't that true? She cares deeply about ensuring that technological advancement is paired with responsible stewardship. And she had her name at the bottom. She was an author of this legislation that got put forward in North Carolina. And I want to just turn it over to her and to correct anything I said and to share what happened in North Carolina. Go ahead, Haley.
Hi, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm going to be leaving to go to annual conference after this meeting. So we haven't had our annual conference yet. So I really hope that the resolution gets passed. I will say upfront that I did receive a call from our resolutions committee, and they agreed with the data centers aspect of my resolution and are mixed on the personal usage aspect of my resolution. But we need to talk about personal usage. Using generative AI, using ChatGPT, AI note takers, looking at AI overviews, and even searching on search engines that have AI overviews, all of that uses generative AI, whether or not you click on the AI overview or not, right? And so these are things that we've somehow gotten super used to in such a short amount of time. I mean, even when I was in college, it wasn't as pervasive as it is right now. And I think that for me, the really concerning thing, like I'm in Gen Z, right? So I've been around a lot of technological advancement, and I just think that this advancement is being pushed, especially to young people. I looked at commencement speeches in May, right, where these corporate people were beaming about AI and talking about how it's the new industrial revolution. And I'm like, well, do we remember how bad the industrial revolution was for all the people that had to work in it? It was bad. And so, yeah, and I think it's just going to be taking young people's job, like people coming out of college and other people's jobs. But I'm always worried about the other people in my generation and coming into a workforce that's just unsustainable. And a lot of us are being forced to use generative AI in our workplaces. Um, my friend's an occupational therapist, and now her therapy notes, she has to use an AI model to do it. So it's really surprising to me how quickly it has caught on. And so I put in my resolution that we should stop using it wherever possible, because I knew already how many people are having to use it in work and even in school. Um, and I want us to promote personal practices that can limit generative AI usage. There are ways to disable AI overviews. If you really prefer Google, if that is like your search engine, there is a way to disable the AI overview. It is a long and complicated way. I can try and find the YouTube video that I used to do it for myself. But there's also a green search engine called Ecosia. Now they plant a tree for every search that you have, and they are a not-for-profit business, and all of the ad revenue that they get goes into the environment, goes back into environmental justice and environmental care. Um, they do have an option that you can like opt into AI from them, but they use solar energy and recycled water. But as we know, even that is like still not a great thing to do. And so, yeah, but Ecosia is a really good option that you can set as your default browser and not opt into their AI uh, option. And I, I think that part of why I wrote the resolution was because I kept getting exposed to like little tiny bits of generative AI over the last few years. Like I remember Snapchat, which is like a photo sharing app. If you don't know, but it started an AI chatbot where you could like talk to it and get recommendations for restaurants or whatever, which was super weird. But then a lot of people would ask it questions and just kind of like be bored, teenagers and 20-year-olds and stuff like that, and didn't really realize the environmental impact that that was having. And there's even been like AI corporations will make these videos of like, can you tell if this is real or AI, or like which one is real or AI? And they'll post them on TikTok and Instagram Reels. And then people will comment being like, I know that this one's AI because of this, 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 and this. And it's like, well, now we're training it on how to be better at fooling people, which is not good. We're giving it that data. And also, you're still engaging in generative AI content. And there's so much of it. And so I wrote the resolution, and I'm hoping that they will accept it. I know, like I said, they are in favor of the data centers portion of it, and they were very strong on that in the phone call that I had with them. And so I'm hopeful that I can get it passed on the floor, and that maybe people just don't understand that, I have a political science degree. So economically, right, if we keep demanding generative AI, then they will keep supplying it to consumers. So I think that one of the most effective ways for us to not have a bunch of data centers continuing to be built is to stop using generative AI and to eliminate it in different ways. The North Carolina Creation Care team has agreed to, they support my resolution, and they've agreed to create an education program with me on dangers of AI, dangers of data centers, and like the exact environmental impacts of them, which I list a good amount of it in my resolution before my Be It Resolved statements. And also alternatives to it and ways to avoid it. And I just think that that would be the most helpful thing for us to do. I mean, North Carolina already has 110 data centers, and they're getting more that are being proposed. There's one that I know has been proposed in Stokes County and one in Person County. And it's, it's already out of hand, and trying to minimize that impact as much as possible is, I feel, really critical for us right now. I had some stuff about like the impacts of data centers, but Rania already did like an amazing job with that. But yeah, I also talk at the end of my resolution in the part that they do agree with about contacting representatives, attending city and county council meetings, and engaging with stakeholders and telling people that we don't want data centers in North Carolina or anywhere else. And having people in their churches and get up and engage in a way that can seem, well, and I mean, it is political, but some people aren't comfortable with that type of thing. But just engaging in stewardship, and in the UMC, they always talk about social holiness. And I think that environmental justice is a big component of social holiness, and that not using generative AI and having a resolution against generative AI and data centers is a way that we can really engage in that social holiness together. So I really hope that it passes, and I hope that they are receptive on the floor about it, because I think it's really important. So that's kind of all I have.
Yeah. So Haley, just a quick
Mhm.
follow-up. You mentioned earlier on that you're Gen Z, right? And
Yes.
many of us have, um, with hair the color of mine, worked for many, many years here and sort of spoken to the impacts that our grandchildren will experience. The United States in general, over the last decades, while other countries were dealing with the impacts of climate change, we weren't feeling it so much here, and that's starting to change. And I'm wondering, I think I see that if a young person speaks out in annual conference on the floor, they get listened to because there is an understanding that this is important. And I'm wondering if you're feeling like your voice as a Gen Z member of Gen Z has helped or may influence the passage of this, that you're.
Yeah. I was told that they like I've only been a United Methodist for like 2.5, 3 years at this point. Um, and so I was told that they do tend to listen to the younger voices. So I'm hopeful that that's true. I think I mean, I got an amendment past my first annual conference on Palestine and the injustice that was happening there. And so in that way, I knew that my voice was listened to. It was certainly a more, at the time, controversial voice that was in the room. And just, yeah. So I don't know. I think I'm very inclined to doing political advocate work. And I worked in politics for a little bit before doing what I do now. And so I hope that they listen, and I hope that it has an impact. And I I assume that my age will at least get people to maybe pay some more attention, because I think they're used to seeing maybe a certain type of person and talking about the up and talking about different things in the UMC. And so I'm hoping that it will be effective.
Me too. Me too. Anything that helps us have that moral conversation, and we have to that makes me grateful. So thank you so much for stewarding that resolution and bringing it to conference next week. So prayers up, everyone, for that to be well received. And I'm hoping maybe some of the resources Rania had shared might help you make that AI make the case for no, I've got that AI usage in there for a reason, and these are the reasons. And that might maybe be helpful. So anyway, thank you for what you're doing so much. One thing I haven't seen about AI, and I'm not sure, Ronnie, you might have mentioned this or someone else, but the mental health aspect, that people are having mental health breakdowns. One person in my family had a mental health breakdown, had to be hospitalized after encounters with ChatGPT. So, Mel, we're going to come back to that. I want to keep moving. That's just one of my little interludes as I move from one person to another. Sorry about that. And I just want to just quickly move on, but we'll have a chance to circle back to all of that. So just keep a pin in that because I want to hear more. Okay, so at this point, we would have introduced Ian. I'm going to drop a little bit of information. His talk would have talked a little bit about the energy, how we as United Methodists can start addressing our own energy use and being more aware of how the changes we make can have influences in our families, communities, and the wider church and church community. But we're going to learn more about that in the newsletter. Check out the newsletter. I'll drop that link and other areas. So you won't be without that information, and I'll drop a little more information as well. What we're going to do is we're going to move to Jenny, who is here. I'm going to go ahead and introduce her, and she's going to speak to a couple of different things. She was also involved in the Horizon Texas petition, but she's also working in sort of the wider community and trying to organize church communities to figure out what is the path here for us to be good stewards in this way. So Jenny Burke Holtz is a deaconess candidate with United Women in Faith in the United Methodist Church, an environmental justice advocate, and a community health leader working at the intersection of faith, health, and civic life. She currently works with the Coastal Watch Association on the Texas Gulf Coast, where she partners with frontline communities to address environmental challenges and protect the health of her neighbors. With more than 25 years experience, Jenny brings a perspective deeply rooted in faith, relationships, and community. As a community weaver and organizer, she is passionate about building belonging and civic muscle, helping communities grow their voice and take action together in care of creation and one another. So, Jenny, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hi, friends. I am so happy to be here. Hi, yay. I love the waves and the smiles back. Deep breath and out. It's a hard topic and a very important topic. But one of my favorite quotes is, without community, there's no liberation, right? And what we have here today is community. And what you have in your home and what you have in your church and what you have in your neighborhood is that opportunity for liberation, that opportunity for everybody. I, again, am an organizer, everything from political work to environmental work to mental health, just a diverse background. And my passion is actually doing it with communities in communities. And that's kind of what I'll talk about. This will apply to kind of any work that you want to do. But remember that there's a place for everyone. There is so much to do. Right? And your skill set, everyone's skill set is needed. We need people who can research, who can block walk, who can read permits, who can do social media, who like to talk in front of people, who just want to coach people. There's a place for you no matter where you are and what you want to do. So please take heart to that. You don't always have to be the one standing up and talking in front of the legislatures. You can be behind your computer doing databases for us. So my guide is, I know Raina talked about some things. My guide when analyzing something in the way that you're doing and being in the community is, are you doing and being with people the same way that industry is doing it? So when you're out there, are you doing the opposite? Are you being extractionary? Are you using the information that you get, the data, the conversations, the people? Is that actually in relationship, or using the information that you get and then taking it and taking their voice forward? So I'm hoping that you'll take that to heart. First thing also that I want to talk about is that everything with data centers and all the fights that we have with the petrochemical, oil, gas industry, all those sorts of things, confusion is a tactic. Systems of oppression depend on people to be overwhelmed, to be disassociated, and to be misinformed. Specifically with data centers, they're complex. The permitting process is complex, different in different cities, in different states. Tax abatements, negotiations are complex. Energy demands are complex. And it's not neutral. It keeps people out. So we are seeing that there are non-disclosure agreements. So tech groups require local governments and landowners to sign these NDAs early in development. So it's even harder to find out what really is going on. And that also can cause some of that despair, right? So confusion is not an accident. If you feel confused, it's a strategy of extraction. And they count on us, on the fact that only a few of us can become experts. Only a few of us. But the good news is that there are more of us than them. And that's up to us, right? That's why we have to work in community, and we cannot work alone. Otherwise, their tactics work. So faith communities, of course, we know are uniquely positioned because we can be trusted institutions, right? We can be. And moral authority to a lot of these elected officials, and that industry can respect depending on where you're at, right? And we have some networks, if you're willing to use their personal networks, that are already in place, and you're not starting from scratch. And of course, Methodists have that long tradition. But what I challenge a lot of our faith communities to do that they don't often do is that a lot of our faith-based organizing stops at postcards and phone calls and within our building, people coming to our building. And what we need to do is be getting outside in the communities in relationship organizing. It happens in person, in community, on their turf, not on ours. So this means going to your city council meetings, and not as a church group, but as neighbors. Sit with the people, have listening sessions with those next to the proposed site. Learn their names before you learn anything else about them, and walk the neighborhoods. See what is there, see what is missing, and host those events in a park, community center, or someone's front yard. So I always encourage you to be there within community. And always lead with your shared values and find those things that are the shared values. So one of the most interesting things that I, have read lately was a post. We are finding that there are strange allies in this fight. Are y'all finding that? I'm definitely finding that, right? This is something that is bringing people to Texas. So here was a post lately that says, I was pushing a narrative not backed by facts so that people would attend my activist meeting. So the most conservative people are joining this fight, and now they're being called radical activists, right? But this mom said, in Texas, those are fighting words. I'm not an activist. I'm a mother that cares about children. I care about kids getting proper education, so I fight for public schools. I grew up in the country. I raised hogs, so I care about the rural way of life being disrupted by hyperscale data centers. And let me tell you about the people who come to my activist meetings, sir. It's the woman who raised you. It's the rancher who is worried about water for cattle. And she just goes on and on and on and on. These are your everyday Americans, your neighbor. These are not your typical environmental activists. And that's why I say it's very important for you to go out, you listen more than you talk, and you find those shared values. And you lead with those values instead of politics or ideology. And you're going to find a lot more in common, and this alone will grow the movement. I don't know how much longer I have to talk, so I can just keep going. I would also say to go ahead and find who's already organizing in your community. Things are already emerging, and you can learn from other communities and other organizing that have been in this fight for a long time. So I am working along the Gulf Coast, that has the largest exporter of crude oil exports, the largest petrochemical plastics plant in the world. And this community, and Corpus as well, is about to run out of water because industry there has had access to the public water system and is estimated, again, you don't know because it's not all public knowledge, to have access to use between 60 to 80% of the water, while the people themselves have been under drought restrictions. Estimated potentially to run out of water by the end of the year. It keeps changing, going back and forth on how they are actually going to get water to the citizens. Citizens are facing fines of $500 if they go over their personal water usage. Industry is not subject to that, right? The inequities that happen. And this is what you will be facing. This is what's going to happen to these communities that are having data centers come in.
Jenny, I'm going to put a pin in that one. And you're so right. The unequal, not only is it polluting and harmful, and the outcome of the AI, what it decides to do, is not necessarily moral in any way. This is a machine. This is a tool. You can use a hammer to hit a nail with, but you start hitting other people with it and you're in trouble. So we've got to have this conversation. I want to interject a little bit of good news. So we come at these sorts of issues from a lot of different angles, especially in the movement, the United Methodist Creation Justice Movement. And one angle is divestment. Why is the United Methodist Church investing in fossil fuels when we see the outcome of this kind of fossil fuel usage, this sort of water usage everywhere? And you have the ability to bring an annual conference petition to your annual conference and ask them to divest. That's been successful in a number of conferences already. And they just put that one over the bar in Baltimore, Washington. This year, just a few weeks ago, they had an early annual conference. And I'm going to drop that link, which shows people speaking from the floor. But shout out to the Creation Care team there, Cherie Wharton, Mike Koob, and other members of the team who made sure that got over, or did their best to get over the line, and it did. And we're seeing all sorts of reasons why. We have for decades. We have to do this work. It is time for our breakout rooms. And we have, Dawn, I don't know where you are on that, but what we do here is allow you to choose the room that you would like to be in. Dawn has launched that box.
Yes, and if you have any trouble joining, just let us know.
Yeah, so go ahead and join your breakout room. Welcome back, everyone. I'm sorry my screen only shows so many folks, and I'm so glad that folks are back. I hope that this was a meaningful time for you. We have just a few minutes, and one of our things is to end on time. And I'm going to just ask a couple follow-up questions. And Haley Reed they emerged from their breakout room with an idea that Haley is going to share. So, Haley, I'm going to just let you share that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I am going to work with my creation care team in my conference to create an education plan on not using AI, and I was thinking that I could. It'll probably involve videos as well as sort of written education that I would love to share with all of you, and that way it's not just like for the North Carolina conference, but it's for kind of everyone who would want to use it. That way we can all share resources that I think would be really helpful. The goal is that will be done. It should be done by around the 1st of September.
That's awesome. We were talking, us cafe team, we get to hang out together in our main space and talk, and we always talk about all the good stuff that was discussed. And one of the things we thought is we need a resource page for data centers. So Haley, when you get that, we're going to try to create this, which will include this movement cafe and more materials and resources that people have that question. Specifically, we want to know what a data center is, and specifically, we want to know what we can do about it. And so we're going to try to hit those benchmarks in that resource page. So Haley, thank you for that. I want to ask Rania if there is anything that you would like to share coming out of the breakout room. You had so much more material than we could cover, and I hope folks will be checking out your links and taking a look at the work that you're doing. But is there anything you'd like to say and follow up?
We organize to win. I think that that's critical. Let's build the strategy to win this fight. Let's discard all those who say it's inevitable, the monster's too large, and actually organize to win, not organize to adapt to this monstrosity, and constantly be value framed and justice framework. And please let me know, reach out to me if you need any policy tools, any support with anything. I've thrown a copy of the slides in the chat that has links to lots of stuff. But please, there are so many resources out there nationwide, statewide, and beyond that we can be working together so we don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time.
Amen. Amen. I want to hear just really quickly, Mel, I see your hand is up, and then I'd like to
And I'm
have
so
you.
sorry, I have to jump. I have a meeting that's starting in 10
Oh,
seconds.
right.
So I'm so
We are
sorry.
so grateful that you're
Thank you
here.
all for
Thank
this space.
you.
Thank you.
I want to time for Mel and Jenny just to kind of follow up from their rooms, and then we'll have our closing prayer. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I saw that Sonia suggested that Haley become an earth keeper, and we talked about earth keepers as well. And I think if we can put a link to earth keepers in there for anybody that needs to know about that. Earth Keepers is a great program. You develop your own program basically, and then you're trained for 3 or 4 days on how to implement that. And it's a great resource, and I recommend it highly. I was not part of the very first group. I was part of the second cohort because uh, they knew it was going to be in South Central jurisdiction, and they wanted me there because I'm in South Central, and it was not in Atlanta. So,
Awesome.
but
That's great.
I recommend Earth Keepers highly to anybody who wants to get more connected.
Perfect. Yes, that was a great call. Great call, Mel. And I've put the link in the chat for anyone who wants to follow that up. Jenny, I noticed you also put a link in the chat, and I'm wondering if you'd like to just have the last word before we move to our prayer.
Sure. We talked about how we could actually mobilize our local communities, like some tangible first steps. And we would love to help with that. I put an application here. If you live in Texas, you can sign up to track any permits that come up. And we know data centers have to have air permits. So there you go. You can use that to track it. That's your
Not-
first tool in
And
your
not-
tool belt.
I will just
awesome.
say also that Jenny and I are working on some projects with small rural churches. And so this is an area that we're working together on. And
Wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah, thank you so much. Our next cafe will be science. So we're going to, every once in a while we do a science cafe where we return to what is climate change? What is happening? What are the scenarios in our region? What can we expect to be happening with climate change? A number of resilience center churches, of course, are doing the work to be ready to provide support to their neighbors, and knowing what to expect is helpful then. And that'll be our July. But just keep the Movement Cafe on your radar for the third Wednesday of the month for these kinds of really important conversations, and to see the tremendous work that is happening. I mean, just shout out to this tremendous work. Thank you to all our presenters who are here. Oh my goodness, really, really grateful. Thank you to the members of the annual conferences who had the wisdom, the foresight, and the heart to raise their hand and say yes on these petitions and clear those bars. Congratulations to Baltimore, Washington, and Mountain Sky on divestment. What a wonderful thing to be able to share. And with that, we are concluded, and I want to turn it over to Dawn, who will bring our closing prayer.
Yes. And I just want to just reiterate what Rishenda said. What a great cafe. I learned so much, and it's always so wonderful to see all your faces on the screen. It really does inspire me, knowing that all the wonderful work you're doing. Okay, let us pray. Merciful Creator, we praise you for the wonder of this earth and the connections of all living things. We come to you today to acknowledging our deep reliance on technology, while also reflecting on the heavy toll it takes on your creation. As we think about the impact of data networks, data centers, we lift up the communities burdened by the heavy water and energy demands of them. So we ask for your help in awakening our hearts to recognize that our digital advancements should never come at the expense of our common home or the vulnerable among us. Give us the courage to act justly and to advocate for the health of our land, our air, and our water. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Dawn. Okay. And that is our cafe, and the weirdness of just hitting a switch back to technology, right? Wouldn't it be better to like linger in clumps and go get coffee? But we don't get to do that today, but we'll get to do this in another setting. So farewell, and thank you all so much.